Hi, Asad. Thank you so much for coming today for this
Oh,
interview. Could you start with a brief introduction about yourself and what you specialize in?
yeah, so I'm Asad Beck. I'm entering my sixth year now as a graduate student in the neuroscience program at the University of Washington. So I do a lot of like different neuroscience related work. One of the main things I do is looking at machine learning in epilepsy in mice. Another thing I do is looking at how like the effects of trauma might change one's
Mm.
circadian rhythms. And another thing I've been doing is also sort of along all of this is like the neural ethics of neuroscience and like neurotechnology and things like that.
Yeah, so I also see that you also are interested in sleep. Could you talk a bit about your work in sleep and then that how that connects?
Yeah, so my lab actually is a circadian rhythms lab. And
Mhm.
so both of these things that I'm looking at, both trauma and also epilepsy, are strongly related to fear. So like sleep disturbances, for example, is one of the most common symptoms reported by individuals with PTSD. And
Mhm.
so a lot of what my work is looking at, um, how do these different neurological neuropsychiatric disorders sort of affect or interact with sleep. And
Mhm.
then sort of thinking more broadly, how might we think about the societal implications of this? And this is getting more to my neuroethics sort of work things.
Okay, awesome. So it's really interesting that you're going into this like multidisciplinary field. How did you get to this point? What was the journey to get here?
Yeah, so my journey was a little weird, I will admit. So like when I entered my undergraduate college, San Diego State University, I was actually undeclared because I had no clue like what exactly I wanted to go in immediately.
Mm.
I think the biggest turning point, I got into this research program called Advancing Diversity in Asian Research. It's like a 3 year long research program.
Mhm.
And I didn't have a specific lab that I was interested in, but then I got involved in this neuropsychology, aging, and genetics lab. I was there for 3 years. My mentors were completely amazing. And
Mhm.
also my mentors in my research program. And really, it's due to all three of them that I got into the program I'm in right now. And
Mhm.
so, what I will say is, sort of consistently throughout this whole time, I've been really interested in neurotechnologies and super fascinating things we can do with that, but then also psychology in general. And another interest I've had alongside of this is philosophy. So I actually
Mhm.
minored in philosophy as an
Wow.
undergrad. Yeah, so I just the way to put it is I had all of these interests. I just didn't have a sort of set in stone way of how to really get into doing these sorts of things.
Mhm.
And one way or another, I wound up here. So it
Yeah,
worked out.
exactly. Could you talk about what drew you to neuroethics and neurotechnology? And is there anything particular in those that you like seeing when you do your lab work or that you keep in the forefront?
Yeah, so to be really honest, technology has, well, general technology like search, etc.,
Um,
has very certain demographics overly represented to
yeah.
be a little vague.
Yeah.
Uh, and so one of the things that, since I'm really interested in psychology and like how people differ and like, ways that these differences manifest. And so one of the things that drew me to the ethics of neurotechnology is sort of the recognition that a lot of these individual differences aren't being represented well. And really, we without sort of accounting for them properly, like facing them like early on, then I expect it's just to like these disparities just compound and compound.
Yeah.
And so my interest in doing this sort of neuroethics work alongside of, more basic or behavioral neuroscience work is so that we can start thinking about the disparities early enough so that they don't cause ramifications
Mhm.
when we start applying these research to humans.
Yeah. I really love the application of it, and hopefully, your goal will be met in the future.
Yeah.
With that, could you discuss? So you mentioned that you do research, and you mentioned these different interests. Could you talk about your day to day right now?
Yeah, so my day to day is so it can vary a lot. So I mentioned, so I'm doing a trauma and circadian rhythms project. So
Yeah.
that one's much more behavioral. So it's much more like checking in on the mice, seeing how they're doing, making sure we know we're getting the activity data that we expect to get.
Hmm.
Another project I'm doing, the epilepsy machine learning one, that one's very computational. So that's a lot of working with data using Python, doing a lot of machine learning training, accuracy, a lot of computation. And then the third one, the neuroethics part of things, that's much more theoretical. So like reading different thinkers' thoughts of like as it relates to sleep, trauma, different sort of philosophical worlds relating to these things. And
Hmm.
so on any given day, it could be that I'm doing more animal work, more sort of computational work, or more like theoretical, philosophical work. And it works out really well for me because I like being able to sort of like have breaks in one type of thinking and think about
Yeah.
something differently. And so having this variety, I think, works really well.
Yeah. Do you find that you're able to often combine your like neuroethics work with that machine learning, with those animal labs that you do?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that I've been doing with this, trauma and circadian rhythms, well, just as an example, is so we do both male and female mice, but we know that males and females respond to trauma differently. And
Hmm.
so one of the things that I'm hoping to argue with this is that, well, obviously one, studying sex differences in trauma is important, but also sort of thinking about how we should reshape how we think about, gender or sex differences in trauma in humans sort of based on this work. So really a lot of this is, I'm doing this sort of behavioral computational work, but then thinking about the neuroethics of it at the same time. As another example, in my machine learning work, so there's like these sort of less complicated models like the linear regression, or these more complicated models like neural networks.
Mm.
And in this machine learning project that I've been doing, I've deliberately been avoiding neural networks because of the sort of ethical implications that their use might have with this
Hmm.
sort of work that I've been doing. So it's sort of a bi-directional relationship almost, where the work I'm doing is informing the ethics, and then the ethics sort of informs the decisions that I make for
Wow.
the project.
Yeah. And then do you have any advice for those watching who hope to go into a career like yours, whether it be in one discipline or in this intersection?
So I think the best advice I can give is um, to sort of do things and see what happens.
Mhm.
That's basically how I've been like, my entire like academic research career has been like, for example, I applied to my undergraduate research program on a whim. I didn't expect to get in. And then similarly, I applied to my UW program on a whim, so I also didn't expect to get in. So it's a
Mhm.
lot of like trying things, as this sounds interesting,
Yeah.
not necessarily expecting it to go one way or the other. And it's a lot of serendipity, I think. It's a lot of
Yeah.
like, I would like this. We'll see what happens if I do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, with that, thank you so much for coming to talk about your experience at
Yeah.
this intersection. I'm really excited to see the new developments in this, especially with how much craziness is going on with technology and different beliefs and ethics. So,
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
thank you so much for having me. It's as you can tell, this is something I get rather excited like talking about. So
Mhm.
any
Yeah.
opportunity to talk about this stuff, I'm there for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Asad.